Welcome to the Childcare Business Professionals Podcast. I'm Evelyn Knight. Welcome. Thank you for joining me today. If you still have your phone out, will you please do me a favor and subscribe to this podcast? So today, as I promised, I am doing an interview with my business coach, Kristine Mehler. You guys have heard me talk about her before. I mention her often. I have explained to you guys how meeting Kristine and hiring her has really changed me as a business person. It has changed my business, and it was the difference and what made me become a successful childcare business owner. A lot of what I teach now are methods and techniques that I've adapted based on her teaching. She really just helped me learn how to think like a business owner instead of just a teacher and a director. So I will not make you wait for the interview. I will just get right to it. I hope you enjoy. I am here today with Kristine Mehler, the CEO and founder of TLG Financial Foundations. Kristine and her company works with business owners to create cash flow. So Kristine, tell me a little bit about what else you guys do.
Well, thank you, Evelyn. We're very excited to be part of your process. And what we really do is we dig into what the business owner needs to build their cash flow and profitability. So we break it down to QuickBooks training, to financial review, and then we start to build a 12-month to 3-year action plan on how to improve cash flow and all the things that we need to do in between to be a healthy and successful business.
Okay, and I was looking, and it looks like altogether we've been working together for about 4 years. So I'll just tell a little bit of history on my end. When I first started with you, my business was pretty much facing bankruptcy. I had a decision to make, either file bankruptcy and go out of business, or give you a shot and try to save my business. So in my mind at the time, hiring you was like a Hail Mary. It was literally a Hail Mary for me. And it was my last hope before I decided just to call it quits. And in that time, I know you've completely helped me turn my business around, where I went from making negative, like I think we were in the negative $80,000 a year, to now we are in a healthy positive where I'm actually making money. So my husband's no longer funding Zooin now that we're working with you. And also, not only that, but I think my books were an absolute mess. Well, I know they were an absolute disaster. And so were my business processes. So something I really want to talk about is how you didn't only help me with the financials, but doing this process completely changed the way I think about business. It literally taught me how to be a business owner. And so my entire program has changed in that time period. What do you think about that? Like, what have you noticed?
Well, I'm ecstatic because that's my dream and goal, right? To help you turn things around and to be successful, because if you're successful, we're successful. And it's a team effort. I think that many business owners start a business because they're really good at something. Like we're good at education. Education is a passion of mine as well. So I can totally relate to that. And so we wear this hat and we're really good at it, but we're not taught how to be business owners. And so that's a process in itself. And what I have found is that anybody in business, including myself, needs a mentor or needs support, needs somebody to brainstorm and talk about things, and more in a proactive way than a reactive way.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And I know from my experience, I was a director at heart, and I was a teacher, and I did not know how to be a business owner. I thought I did. I thought I knew what it took when I had opened my first center. When I hired you, I had been an owner for 8 years already, and I had no clue. And people think that if you take a couple accounting classes and basic accounting, what else is there to know? But there is so much more to know. So I think there's a domino effect that like the program that you use actually creates where you completely start thinking differently. So like, for me, not only have I completely reinvented just how we do our financials for how you've guided me on that, but we've completely changed our program processes. So tell us a little bit about or actually, if you want to explain your Rainmaker process to us, that would be great.
Well, the Rainmaker process is all about determining what the business owner goals and dreams, or dreams and goals, I should say, because it starts with your dreams. And I think what happens is we don't develop clarity as to where we want our businesses to go or grow, or how to grow. And I remember, I hit a brick wall myself about a year and a half ago, where I said, I just can't do any more by myself. I've got to bring in more people. And that's where this all started to evolve, is where I realized that we had to surround ourselves with a team of people to grow our businesses. And that's what we wanted to do with you and your peers, and your brothers and sisters in the industry. So what we do is we start with an evaluation of your QuickBooks. We ask you what your dreams and goals are for the next 12 months to 3 years. And we start to kind of pull together a plan that addresses those. So it's driven by those dreams and goals. And they do change, and it's fun to see that mind shift. When you went through it, I was so excited when you got there, because I knew when you got there that we were going to go places, and there was a lot of opportunity now because you were there with us. And anyway, so that process then goes into education, teaching you what your numbers mean, helping you love your numbers. A lot of business owners that are wonderful at their trades are afraid of their numbers. They're afraid to mess things up. They're scared to make the change or the leap. And being in business, you have to take risks. You have to make leaps in order to grow, in order to learn. So from there, we begin to straighten out the financials and review them on a monthly basis. We don't hand you your financials. We walk you through them. And that's made a huge difference for business owners. And as they get stronger at understanding the numbers and the power of the reports and the story that the reports are telling us, they begin to dig into cost analysis. So how much is it really costing you per child in your preschool or center? And cash flow analysis. Where is the money going? How we've developed growth and targets and budgets and all those wonderful things that actually we use as tools to help our business grow.
Right. And they sound scary. They can sound pretty scary, but I think the way you teach it, it makes it very easy to understand. And it's interesting too, because as I know, before I started working with you, I did not want anything to do with that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's really interesting. I always tell, it's a joke, but I always tell people or business owners, like, if you can order a beverage at Starbucks, you can learn the terminology that we use.
Right.
And once you understand, the terms, it's like a vocabulary test, right? You just, over time, we repeat until it makes sense to you. And once it makes sense, you notice that you even start to get ahead of me sometimes. Like you can see the squirrel processing and you get it. And then you take it into the operations side and apply the information. This is where you hit the nail on the head. What we've really become to understand, especially in your industry, but any industry, is that you have to focus on both sides of the business, the financial and the operations. But even within the financial, you have to focus on growth, sales, right? Tuition income, grant income. At the same time, you're focusing on your expenses and how to be as lean as possible and where you can cut costs. And that flows back over to operations, because financials, you can cut costs. I can cut office expense. I can do certain things. But on the operation side, you can manage how many teachers are in a room per the number of children. You can have more procedures and processes that streamline things, and you can keep all of your, teachers on a budget and keep those supplies costs down without sacrificing the quality of your service.
Right. Well, just to illustrate how much you helped with the business, I know when I came to you, I'll never forget our first meeting together. You told me, okay, you need to go now and cut 10% of your budget. And I thought, or my spending, not my budget. And I thought to myself, there's no way. I thought I was operating so lean as it is. I mean, there were times where we were running out of Kleenex. I was being such a penny pincher. So I thought there is no way. How on earth am I going to cut 10% when I'm already on a skeleton budget? But I know when you walked me through it and showed me some stuff, by the time it was said and done, at that time we cut it by about 17% instead of just the 10. And I think at this point, now my business has grown, so it's a little bit different, but if comparatively, it's down by about 20% altogether. So it's really interesting that you've taught me how to see things so differently. And that's where I think before, as just a director who became an owner, I just didn't even know where to look for that extra money. And I think I always thought I just need more enrollment. I needed to raise my prices. I constantly was trapped in that thought process. I never thought to look inside my business to find more money. Do you see that a lot?
Every day, every day. It really starts with, again, understanding the numbers. There's just two powerful reports that every business owner needs to learn to read, and that's a balance sheet and a profit and loss. Most focus on the profit and loss, and understanding the difference between profit and cash flow. And so that whole process and that learning together, learning about you and you learning about or from us, we become a family, right? And so together we focus on the health of the business using all the tools available.
Right. And I know right before we started recording, we were talking a little bit about the biggest pain points you find with new owners. And we were talking about just how emotionally taxing it can be and how it can actually affect our mental health to a certain extent because of the stress. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so it's a fear. It's really just fear. That's what it comes down to, and the unknown. How am I going to turn this business around? You know instinctively that something needs to be done. You just don't know what to do or how to do it, and never had anybody really show you. And so, and so what I'm seeing is that there's a fear around QuickBooks or whatever financial application people are using, understanding the reports and the information, and then how to apply and use it. And that just takes the willingness to make the investment of time, because it is a huge commitment of time to change a mindset and turn your business around. And the willingness to learn is really big. And that will ensure your success. You're willing to learn, you're applying the information. You guys know when you go to one of those conferences and you get all this really great information and you're like so pumped up and excited, and you go back and you just forgot all about it, or you weren't sure how to apply it. So the key is to being open, being willing to learn, do the steps, be disciplined in the steps, and then implementing those changes.
Right. And I love that you mentioned going to the trainings and not really taking it back. I'm a trainer in the state of Nevada for early childhood education, and I took a training on how to train, basically. And one of the things that really jumped out at me is statistically, when you go to a training, only 5% of what you learned is actually ever implemented. But coaching, if you go have a training and you add coaching to the training, people will implement 80%. So that is just huge. And I think that's where I really had that success with you, because not only did we spend an hour every week together where you taught me how to read all this, but you also spent that hour every week coaching me through it. So first of all, I had to be accountable. I had to get it done. And secondly, you guided me so it wasn't like out of sight, out of mind. With that constant coaching kept it in the forefront of my mind, and it really just helped. Well, and I guess if I got stuck, I was easily able to go back to you and say, hey, I know that we talked about this and you taught me about this last week, but I'm stuck. Whereas with a lot of trainings, you go, they're over, and that's it. If you realize, next week that you didn't get something, too bad. You're just pretty much stuck, and it's just you wasted money on that training. So I really think that the key to your process is that one-on-one coaching. So what do you think about that?
I think that's accurate. I think you hit it when you said accountability. I think that we don't have people to keep us accountable when we're trying to implement changes, and then we let that fear get in the way. So
right.
Having a team of people to come back to, when you and I worked together and I began to grow and adopt people, those people became part of your team.
Right.
So what we want to do as business owners is we want to find the strengths in all of the individuals that work with us and put them on the right seat of the bus in our business. And so we're always tapping into the strengths of the individual and building a strong team around us. And the other part of that is leadership. Leadership isn't something everybody is born with. And so as the director owner, it's important for you to convey your vision and the clarity of that vision to the rest of your team. You want your team to see where you want to go and be excited to be part of that journey.
Yes, and I think that was, for my staff at least, that was probably the biggest game changer for me. Was I've always known my vision. I've had a very clear vision, which I know when it comes to owners that I'm pretty unique in that I've always had this really clear vision. But when I put that vision in writing, and we even created like a storyboard for the vision, and I've got live examples, like I was able to just go back in through our history and pick the children that have fulfilled that vision. But when I brought that to my staff, it was a huge game changer. And it was really cool because I had each staff member create a vision for their classroom. And that was huge for us, where it really, their production went up, and my employee retention is really good. And in our industry, you don't see great employee retention. And I think that was the key to my staff really sticking with me, is they understand my vision and they really have that strong buy-in.
Mm-hmm.
So shifting gears a little bit, we talked about the goals that you have when working with businesses. I know that when I started with you, I was in such a place of desperation and hopelessness. Do you sometimes find it hard to get people to understand that goal and to have that mental shift, just because of we get trapped in our mental history? Do you find that to be a problem?
Good question. It's a process. So you can't change all of that in one day, one session, and overnight. It's a lot of just listening to the pain points and addressing. And I think what helps you get past that is seeing the results. I think that's true for any business owner. So as you begin to see the changes and the positive impact of those changes, you start to calm down, you start to get more confident, start to feel better about things, right? And so it's hard to answer that. I'm not afraid of anybody who feels that way. I feel like we just have to be patient, right, and just keep talking. You notice when we have sessions, it's almost like a therapist session sometimes. We're just talking back and forth and brainstorming and just sharing our thoughts, and the fact that you open up and you're honest, and you come from an emotional place is a positive thing, or we're emotional beings by
Right.
nature, right? So it's just really listening to each other,
Yeah.
and whatever comes from the conversation, it's really a solution. But sometimes the solutions to our problems are we don't want, they're band-aids, right? We don't want band-aids, we want permanent
Right.
fixes.
Right.
So in order to get to the root of the real problem, we have to be willing to just be open and share. And
Right.
it's always been easy for me because people just want to talk to me about things. So that hasn't been hard for me at all.
Right. And I always joke that you're like my business life coach. You're like
That's
my
so
life
funny.
coach whenever, yeah, I always feel like, okay, whenever something comes up at Zoo and I'm like, oh, I got to get a hold of Kristine. She'll know what to, and that's part of the reason I know sometimes my husband will ask me like, well, wasn't she supposed to just clean up the books? And now here we are 4 years later, you're still working with her. And like, well, yeah, because, it still works for me. And I think everybody, no matter how successful your business is, should have that person, the accountability for one thing, and someone also to just bounce ideas off of. Sometimes when I call you with issues, I know the solutions. I just don't know. Like a lot of times you'll just pull them out of me, but you'll just kind of walk me through it. But it's so hard to have that confidence in yourself sometimes.
Well, it's validation, right?
Yes.
It's hearing somebody else validate that what you're thinking is right on. I mean, I have business mentors and coaches myself. I think everybody should have that.
Right.
I never want anybody to think we're just supposed to clean up your books.
Right.
When you talk about what's hard for us on our side is that we can't convey what we truly do because it really comes from a place of heart and passion, and it's hard to convey that.
Absolutely. Well, and I still to this day, with Zoo and doing so much better, I'll still find myself like Black Friday is a great example, where I'll be out and I'll see some like, ooh, we have the money for that. I've got the money in my profit account. I could, but then I think, no, I've got to call with Kristine, and she'll ask me, okay, did you really need that? And so it really is helpful, and it really does help me to just, I guess I always joke with, that you're my Jiminy Cricket. So.
Evelyn, a lot of people, I always say what you love about me, you hate about me, because,
right.
You're glad that I'm there in your corner, but also standing on your shoulder looking over, so.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I didn't intend that. That just naturally happened.
That just happened, right? Which is awesome. I mean, I was looking literally at a $2,000 computer last week. I'm like, I really don't need a $2,000 computer. The ones I have are fine. And I needed one because I crashed one, but I didn't need a $2,000 one, So it was kind of funny though, because you were Black Friday shopping with me in that sense. But
that's funny.
I hope you enjoyed my conversation with Kristine. Be sure to join us again next week, where we really dive in to a lot of the work that Kristine and I did together. We start off next week's episode by just talking about being in that point in your business where you kind of feel hopeless and you just don't think you're going to make it. And suddenly you have this change in the business and in your thinking, and you realize that you can start dreaming again and you can start making goals again. So we talk about how I made that shift. So make sure to join us. There's a lot of great information for you guys. If you want more information on Kristine and her amazing coaching business, you can find her website at tlgff.com. And you can also email her at Kristine@tlgff.com. And her name is actually Kristine. You can also find me on Facebook at the Childcare Business Coach, and I'm also on Instagram. I'm getting ready to publish my workshop schedule for 2020 on my Facebook and Instagram pages, and I'll also have it uploaded to my website, which is childcarebusinessprofessionals.com. I hope everybody has a wonderful week.